That's the first thing I thought about was abortion. That's what I'd heard, how abortion was there to help me, how at the age of 14, there's no way I was going to be able to have a child, that I couldn't do that at the age of 14.
And I was a 60s kid, and I got very promiscuous and was doing a lot of crazy things and wound up pregnant.
I was dating a young woman named Diana in college, and she was getting ready to go to medical school, and she got pregnant.
After a couple of days of being pressured and crying and begging, we have to have this child. He's our baby, and he forced me to go and have the abortion.
It wasn't really my decision to make, even though it was my child. That I really was just, kind of a bit player in this whole drama.
I think really the main thing, my biggest concern was, what were people going to think about me? What were people at school going to say?
I could hear a lot of women sobbing, crying. Some were just dead silent.
I wake up from the recovery room, and I felt so empty all of a sudden, and I was crying, and I had no idea why I felt like that, because here, like I said, I thought I was doing the best thing that was for me.
She was crying, and she told me they took my baby. I saw them take my baby. And I knew, in my heart that what we were doing was wrong.
When I told them I was pregnant again, an anger outburst, and you have to have an abortion, I said, I can't have another abortion.
He was very clear, me or the child. I don't remember a whole lot of that second one. What I remember is he took me, paid for it, picked me up, and I got drunk that afternoon.
I started drinking a lot. I got almost completely away from church. And I do remember that sporadically I would go to church and I just felt so guilty.
I started going to church with my husband. This is years later. This is like 8 years later. And I was going to church with him, and we were dating at this time. And every time I'd walk into the church, I was like crying and stuff. And I don't know, I didn't even know why.
And I think for a lot of men, to show that you're hurt by something like this is almost a sign of weakness.
It was scary to make that call, and probably the best phone call I've ever made in my entire life. So.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Recognize that these are treats. Our place where you're not there to be judged, you're there to be healed by the power of Christ.
So I went to that weekend retreat.
I don't even know how to begin to describe that first retreat of mine. It was unbelievably comforting and healing.
I finally got that closure that I needed, and I was able to truly grieve and let it all out, and then and give it all over to Jesus, and just knowing that, that Jesus had forgiven me, and it was just taking me to forgive myself.
The retreat was probably the most profound, life-changing thing that's ever happened to me.
God has touched your heart and brought you to this moment, and this is a beginning of a wonderful opportunity of experiencing God's mercy and forgiveness.